Right, in this review of Big Finish's Fifth Doctor Adventures Helter Skelter, I've promised myself I'm not going to make a single Beatles reference. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and I'm just looking at my video here. I'm wearing way too much black and it's way too dark. So I've just got home from work, it's very late, and I just wanted to get these reviews done. Actually, this makes sense, I forgot to turn the backlights on. There we go, that's slightly better. So before I listened to the Fifth Doctor Adventures Helter Skelter, I was thinking, it seems like a long time since I've listened to any Fifth Doctor, and that doesn't make sense because they still released a bunch of box sets over the past couple of years, but then I realised why it felt like such a long time. It has been 2 years since we got a box set from the Fifth Doctor Adventures that wasn't related to Hooklight. The Dream Team box set came out in April 2024, and then we had The Great Beyond, which was a 6-part story which led directly into Hooklight Part 1 and Hooklight Part 2, so this is actually part of a big 18-episode saga. So with Helter Skelter, we're kind of back to whatever counts as business as usual for the range now. So this is a Fifth Doctor box set with Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, we've got Janet Fielding as Tegan, and Mark Strickson as Turlough. We're in season 21 territory. And we've got a trilogy of stories here. We've got Field of Miracles by Laura Mooney and Stuart Pringle, Helter Skelter by James Moran, and Land of Fools by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle. So you've got this James Moran sandwich here where we can find the titular Helter Skelter. And we're going to go through these stories in order. So Field of Miracles takes place in 1951 Hetherington, this small quaint village which is overcoming the trauma of the Second World War and austerity. And 6 months before the Fifth Doctor, Tegan and Turlough arrived, things started changing in Hetherington. Just a few small things at first. Some people were able to get these new dresses that they wanted, some were able to afford these motor cars, and they had their pockets full and their bellies were never empty. The fortunes of Hetherington started to drastically change, and this hit its peak with the literal dead from World War II coming back to life. And you've got Joni, played by Emily Woodward, who is a single mother in Hetherington who is afraid of these miracles. However, she seems to be the only one who approaches this with skepticism, as everyone else in Hetherington appears to have embraced their wishes coming true. However, these wishes come at a cost.
Take him home, he's drunk!
Yeah, but Bowers, there's strangers in the village tonight.
Here we go.
Be still.
Helen, they took her. My jewel, my only daughter. You should understand how that feels better than anyone.
Let her be. It's not Helen's fault.
It's all of you, all of us. She was all I had in the world and they took her. Now my house is empty. Silent. Do you know what that's like?
Stop this!
I told you there'd be a cost for it, for this harvest, for the fields. We should have known. We should have known.
Enough, Bowers. That's enough. Not here.
There's no need for that.
He's had enough. Excuse us.
We'll pay for it, all of us. There'll be a reckoning.
Stop!
And
Stop!
what will you do in the day of visitation and in the desolation which will come from far? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your riches?
That's our cue, I think. Come on, Turlough. Let's take a look around.
I've mentioned in the past how much I love the work of Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle, and it seems that so much of their work comes from The Wicker Man from the early 1970s, and I think what they've taken here is just sort of like the communal element with this weird supernatural secret in this isolated village. And of course you've got elements of prejudice and mob mentality here, and that seems to be the undercurrent through a lot of Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle's work. It feels like The Wicker Man is like the creative epicenter of their work, and I'm all for that. And just like you'd expect from this writing duo, there is some really creepy, horror-tinged imagery, especially the titular Field of Miracles, where these things that the people of Hetherington have wished for are literally growing from the ground, including the people who have been brought back to life from World War II, as they're like half-formed scarecrows. Really creepy imagery here, as you have this Fifth Doctor TARDIS team fighting against this entity that's able to grant people's wishes, and as a result, you're kind of dealing with a more abstract sort of threat, and we are dealing with the power of wishes here. So the third act, the actual ending, how the Doctor defeats this entity, is a little bit wishy-washy, although the fan service that accompanies it, what the Doctor wishes for in the end when he wishes upon a star, is such a triumphant, like, punching the air moment. I loved it so much. But aside from a third act, which kind of comes up short when it comes to specifics and logic, it feels like Field of Dreams is just such a whimsical and scary story. It's got wonderful character beats, whether it's Turlough's natural gift for calming babies, something that Tegan is just not able to get at. You've got this really charming vicar character, Reverend Bowers, played by Matthew Cottle, who is just obsessed with tea, and it's really lovely. He's just this really fun, eclectic presence in the third act, just when all hope seems lost. With the emotional heart of the story being Joni, somebody who's looked down upon in the village because she's a single mother in 1950s England. I also really respected the story for what appears to be a really strong anti-landlord stance. The story explains that in cities it's the mayors in charge, but in villages it's the landlords, and the landlord in Hetherington is a separate threat, is a separate entity to whatever is granting these people's wishes, but they are two sides of the same coin. They are exploiting people's desires and their needs and forcing them to essentially pay rent that they can't possibly pay. It's a really cool piece of subtext, and intentional or otherwise, I really appreciated it. Next up, we have the titular Helter Skelter by James Moran. For folks who don't remember, James Moran wrote some Torchwood episodes on TV and also The Fires of Pompeii for Doctor Who, and he's been a Big Finish mainstay for several years now. Helter Skelter takes place on the planet Julio Solas, which I won't even get into the techno babble. It uses some strange geoengineering and it's able to harness the heat from the two suns that surrounds the planet. But the planet has used this technology to create the huge Funtopia amusement mega park, which the Fifth Doctor, Tegan and Turlough find themselves at, and they go into the theme park to have a good time and to have some rest and relaxation. However, there's some strange cult members inside of the park, there's some strange goings on underneath the surface of the planet, and then the apocalypse happens. The sun explodes, the planet explodes, it all just ends. However, something has gone wibbly here because the cycle repeats. The Doctor, Tegan and Turlough land on this planet and they go to the Funtopia theme park and they repeat the loop where the world explodes and then the TARDIS lands again and then they go through it again. But Tegan is the only person who recognises that they're in a time loop, so Tegan has to figure out a way to convince the Doctor and Turlough that they are trapped in a Groundhog Day style time loop, and it's up to Tegan to figure out how to break the loop and to stop Julio Solas from blowing up.
There we are. Exactly when and where I was aiming for.
That shouldn't be a high bar to clear.
You try landing in a small parking space on the right planet at the exact second you intended. It's not easy.
What? Hold it. Hold it. Just hold it. What is going on?
Eh? What do you mean? We've landed. Rather well, if I say so myself. Thankfully, you've stopped giving scores, but even so, I think that was at least an 8.
No, I mean, what? We just got blown up? The entire planet just blew up. We've already landed and went into the park and walked around and then everything blew up and now we're back to the start of the day. Are you seriously telling me you don't remember what just happened?
You all right? Did you hit your head when Genghis Khan was chasing us?
Hit your head in a minute, mate.
Where are we anyway? It's very, very sunny and hot. I'm not really built for sunny and hot.
The planet Helios Solis, it's been bioengineered for
constant daylight, special machines in the core, blah, blah, blah. I know. You already said that because we have already done this.
Fans of Tegan are eating really, really well with Helter Skelter. This is a terrific Tegan story, and I think the idea of it is, what if you had Groundhog Day, but with, of course, an especially argumentative character like Tegan, but also someone who is incredibly pragmatic. Tegan is very underrated in her ability to actually figure out her way out of these situations. The companion role in Doctor Who can often be a bit of a thankless one. You're kind of mainly there to support the Doctor and say, "What's that, Doctor?" And then he explains some technobabble to you, and then you have to sort of simplify it so that the audience at home can understand. And sometimes that is just the companion role in Doctor Who. But with Helter Skelter, what we have with Tegan is that she essentially, inadvertently and unintentionally, and against her will, gets promoted to the role of the Doctor, where for once, because of the repetition of the time loops, she's the one who knows what's going on, she's in charge, she takes point, she's the one who delegates tasks and says, okay, we're going this way, this is what we're doing, and Tegan doesn't really like it, because she just hates being in this situation and this feels so out of character for her. But she also gains a newfound respect for the Doctor and thinking, okay, no wonder you're so grumpy, no wonder you're like this, Doctor, because everybody else is so slow. It's taking everybody else so long to figure out what is basically in front of them. And just outside of this dynamic, you have an exasperated Turlough who just really wants to ride the roller coasters and just wants to eat the candy floss. Beth Chalmers does a really good job playing the CEO of the Megapark, Deandra, and she also plays the ticket inspector who is just really trying to force the smile of this super fun Megapark. And as is necessary with good time loop stories, James Moran has dotted around a bunch of other supporting characters who aren't particularly that well fleshed out because we only meet them in the context of a couple of minutes and then it gets repeated and the loop repeats over and over again, but they are memorable enough that you are able to play with their dynamics and subvert expectations with different loops as you progress through the course of the story. You've also got the sardonic security guard, you've got the superfan Hollis, who has been around the theme park so many times, if he goes for a 13th time he gets free entry. But ultimately this is Tegan's story, and Janet Fielding really rises to the occasion for this one. She's really good in this. She is the one who is carrying the story, who is carrying the scenes, because she is effectively, in the context of Helter Skelter, playing the Doctor. And it's a really good fit for her. And the concluding story in the Helter Skelter box set is Land of Fools by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle. I really like the naming conventions here. This is the Nicholas Briggs School of Titles, where you could get an exclamation point at the end of every one, and that's a good Doctor Who title. Field of Miracles, Helter Skelter, Land of Fools. Yeah, this meets the remit. So the Doctor, Tegan and Turlough land the TARDIS in what they assume to be 1980 London. And Tegan decides to use this opportunity to visit her friend Jackie, played by Sarah Lambie, in hospital, because in 1980 Tegan was travelling while her friend Jackie went into hospital, and Jackie never came out again, so Tegan doesn't want to change her fate, she just wants to say goodbye. However, Tegan arrives at the hospital and finds that Jackie is completely cured, and she appears to have joined a cult. And it's here that our TARDIS team discover that 1980s London is not what it should be. Something in history has changed, and it's essentially become a dictatorship. It's a security surveillance city run by the enigmatic M, as in the letter M. M, played by Jack Barton, becomes very enamoured with Turlough and tries to recruit him into this cult, while simultaneously the Fifth Doctor meets Zan, who is a student protester played by Heba Medina, and Zan is essentially on hand to explain what on earth has happened in 1980s London to the Doctor.
M, like the letter.
Mean anything to you?
It might.
Came out of nowhere. Suddenly, he was everywhere. Lukos this, Lukos that. It's like this jumped-up leisure club, but he was loaded, so people listened to him. Now he seems to have bought half the city, building skyscrapers everywhere, him and his members.
Places like this.
Yep. That's Lucas One, their main headquarters.
Some gathering.
Oh yeah. It's for their luminaries. Used to be monthly, now it's more like once a fortnight. None of them come out normal. Some of them don't come out at all.
Your brother.
People like him, going missing, yes.
Zan.
Look, I don't want to talk about him. I've done what you asked. You wanted to know more about Lukos. There's all the answers you need.
Yes. I wonder, through the front or through the back?
You're not going in.
Of course. We came all this way.
I'll say goodbye then. You'll come out like one of their brainwashed Drews. Everyone does.
I don't know.
Land of Fools is a difficult story to review because you do have to dive into spoiler territory, and I can't really do that with these Big Finish reviews, so if it feels like I'm skirting around the edges of certain plot points, or maybe alluding to things and not confirming things, that's why I'm going to try and not spoil what happens in Land of Fools. But as you can probably tell from the naming conventions and also the writers of the stories, Field of Miracles and Land of Fools are essentially two sides of the same coin thematically. Field of Miracles takes place in the 1950s during the post-war consensus where community can rally together to give themselves abundance. However, by the time we get into the 1980s in Land of Fools, we are now in the real world. We're left with neoliberalism from Thatcher, and that sense of community is taken away to benefit the very few, and that's where we find people like M, who have essentially removed society and replaced it with a cult-like ideology. And people like M, who is played really sensitively and with a lot of nuance and pathos by Jack Barton. I think he's really terrific in this story. People like M do not understand what their predecessors left behind for them, and they've taken all of the wrong lessons from history. I found M to be a surprisingly compelling villain, not just the mystery as to who this shadowy M is, or when it is revealed who he is and how he relates to the broader themes of the story, but from small details like how enamored he is with Turlough, just maybe how much he sees of himself in Turlough, and I think that's a really interesting dynamic to have. The mid-story cliffhanger is absolutely superb. I really loved it. I was listening to it in the car and I was screaming at the radio going, what the hell? And I really enjoyed that. And the direction the story was heading towards in the third act, I thought Land of Fools had a really emotionally fulfilling ending. For the most part, there is a coda at the end of the story with Tegan and Jackie, and while I do think it was necessary, it does feel really brief, like the episode just abruptly ran out of time and just had to finish the scene midway through. But apart from that, I really like Land of Fools. This was a really strong box set. I kind of went in with neutral expectations, but Helter Skelter is such a strong and varied box set. Like, you've got your historical with Field of Miracles, you've got your future story with Helter Skelter, and then you've got your what counts as contemporary and present in the 1980s, your present day story in Land of Fools. It's really varied. I think Turlough is kind of underutilized, but he is still really effectively portrayed by Mark Strickson. I think he's really good in the role, but he's just, if you're a big Turlough fan, there's not that much for you in Helter Skelter. But if you are a Tegan fan, the titular Helter Skelter story is a massive home run success, and for my money it probably is the best single story of the box set. But massive credit to Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle for essentially bookending the box set with some very thematically rich stories with really great characterization, really strong theming, and a narrative through line that was really captivating to listen to. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle as a writing pair is one of my favourite Big Finish writers at the moment. The Quintessence, their story in Zygon Century Infiltration, their work on the Paternoster Gang, The Flawless Man from Torchwood, Cloud 8 from the Ninth Doctor Adventures, and now Helter Skelter, where the two clearly wrote so hard they got blisters on their fingers. Thank you so much for watching my review of the Fifth Doctor Adventures, Helter Skelter. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, subscribe for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews, and folks, I'll see you all next time.